Hello, hello, and welcome everyone to the weekly chat. Sorry, I'm just copying some files over for you, and I think it's done. Pop that out of the way. Okay, I hope you're all having a wonderful week. It's Tuesday night. We have, of course, our Tuesday chat, the weekly chat every Tuesday. So here we are at 8 p.m. again, and tonight we're going to talk about a really creepy topic, but we're going to touch on fungal and mites and share with you lots of tidbits about that in relation to a lot of the videos that you see us put out and how we treat guinea pigs and what we do from there. So if you're just coming into the chat, we're actually streaming to a couple of different platforms. I can see the numbers popping up and up and up. So hello and welcome. Tell me where you're from. And at the same time, let me know if you can see and hear me. I'm just going to open up the chat as well, so I can say hello to a few people. Hello, Carolee. Hi, Jake. How are you? Hello, Suzanne. Well done. So did I, Suzanne. Doesn't take long at all. And again, I have crept away into a tiny corner of our room where I can speak to you. Oh, fantastic. Excellent. That is really good. We're actually having the cable that I'm using run to the shelter so that it will be available later. We just haven't had it done yet. So in the meantime, I have to do it from here. It's too cold outside. We're in darkness now because it's 8 o'clock at night. So yeah, so that's pretty cool. So tonight we are talking about fungal and mites, and it's such an enormous topic. It's really a big part of the work that we do in helping people get on top of these issues. And there's a lot of confusion that I see in our group and in different different online questions and direct emails that I get. So hopefully we can cover a bit of that here tonight. Now, as you're joining us live, if you do have a guinea pig that you have a question about, if you would like to join me, I can share the screen with you, and you can actually ask for some help while you're here, which is something that's easy enough to do. But for those of you that are used to our weekly chat, I've prepped some information for you as we'll go through, which will make it really useful later on. So, okay, so let's start with maybe just popping up into the chat if you have had any instances of fungal or mites occurring in your guinea pigs. Just pop that up down below. It's fairly common, fairly common. And the severity of what we used to see 10 years ago has diminished significantly through the work and the videos that we constantly put out. People are finding this information, which is great, and getting on top of it early. So the severity side of it, we don't see as much of it now as we did 10, 15 years ago. And that's fantastic. It's a bit like, when I first started Cavi Central, it was very common to see metal cages for guinea pigs to be kept in, which, as you can imagine, here in Australia, that would just be, it's a death pit. And we don't see them now because we've constantly messaged it's totally unsuitable. So, things change over time. Information changes over time. And, some of the things I'm going to share with you tonight, I would hope that you never experience with your own pig. Is if you're aware of fungal, you'll never ever see this. But in terms of rescue, we see it, and you'll see lots of the lots of the images that we show and share as those cases come through. But the more people can get on top of it through this information, the least invasive it becomes. Okay. So we've got Jake can hear me. Excellent. Hi, Virginia. Hello. Both in a number of piggies. Yeah, Essa has had a bad case when you first got her. Excellent. Well, we're going to touch on lots of things to do with fungal and mites. And we may even find, again, because of time constraints, that we break this into two areas because there's such big, broad topics. But firstly, let's talk about the fact that when we deal with fungal and mites, it's very easy for us to say to people, treat for both. And the reason for that is that usually both are involved. 9 times out of 10, both are involved. So with that being the case, we always recommend treating for both. We don't want you to get into the specifics of what type of mite, what type of fungal, but certainly from the methodology we promote, it's always been to treat for both. So let's start with fungal. Fungal is a really interesting topic, and I might get you some pictures. Hold on, let me just open up a window so we can see some interesting things here that I've got prepared for you. How do I do this again? I really need to remind myself every week. Hold on. Stay tuned. And this one. Da, 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 da. I always thought I was really on top of it tonight and realized I didn't have this screen open. Okay, hold on, just moving that to there. Right, first one we're going to have a look at is, yes, this. Holy dooly, I've got it working, I think. Okay, here we go. Switching to the screen. Let me know if you can see it. Zooty is an awesome name, absolutely. Oop, hold on. Sharing. Share to my screen. Stand. No, I've done the wrong one, I think. Here we go. Okay. That one. Okay. I am really hoping that you can see one of the thumbnails of our videos, because we have hundreds and hundreds of videos on the channel of which you can look at topics around fungal and mites. But what you'll notice with each and every one of them is that they might be slightly different or have different variations on the same theme in severity and other things. So this is another little fungal case. And of course, you can't see the fungal up front here in the image, but of course, when we then walk you through in the video, you'll see later. We're not going to cover those tonight, but I wanted to share with you that there's so many. Now, this little one here, I'll see if I can start playing just the start of this so you can see this poor little girl that came to us a while back, and she had extremely severe fungal, but as you can see, she's also emaciated, very, very thin, and she's compromised in lots of different ways. Now, it's really interesting that, I'll stop her there. There she is there, just about to have a bath. It's really interesting when we look at piggies like this, you can see how dehydrated she is. Look at the folds in her skin, just a horrendous state. She made a full recovery, which is terrific. But let me go back just a bit to here. It's amazing when we create videos like this, we'll have people say, oh my goodness, the nails are so dreadful. The nails, yes, they're a little bit long, but they're not life-threatening. So in a scenario like this, we're more concerned with actually optimizing the health of the animal so that we can just keep them alive and then process through the other types of treatment for mange and so forth. In this situation, she's highly dehydrated. She's extremely thin. So her organs have got a lot of pressure on those. But you can go and watch her video. That's one of the ones we have that is available. So that's just to show you a severe case. Have a look at this little fellow here. And what you'll notice is in here around the ear. Now we talk about ear fungal. You'll notice a little bit of flaky skin happening up the top. And then down the sides around the ear, around the base. Look at how hard and solid this is, and how white it's appearing in here. This is fungal. And it's why we stress that you really need to check around the ears and folds of your guinea pigs, because this is an area that is favored by fungal spores, if you like. So down around the eye here, you'll notice in front of the eye, there's some hair loss showing. And again, some little bits of white in here, which are related to fungal growth. Okay, 2 piggies here. And these two actually arrived in together. But the sorts of questions that people will ask are, should you separate one guinea pig when it has fungal? And I'll touch on that shortly, but we'll come back to that. And you can see one piggy there has hair loss occurring through the back. A lot of people want to establish if this is mites or if this is fungal. Treat for both in this instance, and we'll come back to why. Okay, another pair here. You can see they've arrived. This is them arriving into rescue. But little tiny hairless patch on this one, nothing overly standing out. But down here on this little, it was a boy actually, these were boys. But you'll notice sort of the patchiness in the coat, but you'll also notice the big clump of white on the face. And if we take a closer look, we can start to see that there is some white, flaky crustiness in here, which is fungal and related to mite activity, actually. And, ooh, I don't know what happened then. Did I just zip through things too quick? I think I did. Yes. And if we look at the little fellow, this is his face. Look how severely encrusted his face is. So a really nasty situation occurring there. And actually, what's interesting too is people can think this is their face because it feels quite solid down to this point, but actually the hair length. I've seen guinea pigs where the full 2/3 of the hair is actually full of fungal and built out in this crustiness. We call them little crusties, but it's really, really horrendous. And we're actually dealing with mange in that scenario, which is mites and fungal. Okay, again, the effect of mites and fungal here can be seen. Mites where we have hair coming out at the shaft like that, and you can see white flakiness again in around the hair base. Little flakes of dandruff, another indication something is going on. And some piggies, when people have them, they don't look underneath. So they look all furred up and lovely on top, but when you pick them up underneath, suddenly they are naked. And this poor little girl has lost her coat down underneath, which, again, we just instantly say, look at mites fungal combinations there, and we'll come back to that shortly. I'm just going to share with you a few photos. Looking at her on top, this is actually the top of that same little girl. You'll notice some little tiny bits of white flakiness, which white skin scaly is the usual appearance of fungal. Okay, now what I might do before we go through this little girl is just come back and make sure that you can in fact see all. Oh, actually I can see that there now. That's pretty cool. Okay. All right. Can you tell me, did you get to see those images as I went through? Were they showing up okay? Yeah, Suzanne, you've seen a lot here. Missy had a bad case of fungal in October. Yeah. Great. Did everyone see the images? All clear? Oh, great. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so with this little girl here, again, we look at the combination of mites and fungal together, but she was a pregnant sow that arrived into care in this state. And if we I'm not sure how I click that on. Do I do it like that? No. Oh, I think I have to go to the screen. Hold on. Let me see. Yep. Hold on. How do I do that? Just trying to control the computer. Hold on. Oh, here we go. Okay. So back to this girl. She was a pregnant sow that arrived like this, heavily pregnant, and you can see substantial hair loss. over her body. Now, in this instance, and in fact, the girl that you saw her tummy before, neither of them have any white, flaky scaliness around their skin. And we often see this when sprays are being used. So people will call out for help. Pet shops will direct them to using a mite spray. They spray their guinea pigs, and this is actually the result. So we don't see the scaly behavior that we do in other cases, because it sort of keeps it at bay, but it does not get on top of the issue. We need far stronger medications involved. So with this particular girl, she was treated immediately, and this is her when she gave birth. Literally within 20 minutes of giving birth, you can actually see the young up here in the corner. This is a bit of a trigger warning, this photo. But she literally just tore her hair out. So it was absolutely atrocious. And even though she had only a day or two of the correct treatment on board, this is what happened at the point of littering. And then, of course, we were able to work with her and fully get her healed. So that journey continued. All of the young actually survived. And Dita, once I got her through this severe area, she actually stayed with our foster carer, Dita, then until she came back. So, yeah, so that's pretty, whoop, where'd you go? Hold on. Pretty amazing story. Nope. Sorry, guys, I'm messing around with the screen. And it seems to be stuck. Oh, I think it might be the last one in there. So let me see. Okay. For you. Let me just check. And indeed, it is not. There was another one. This one here. Hopefully you're looking at her. Is that one sharing? Hopefully. Yeah, okay, try this one. Okay, so we had her fully recovered to this, but I wanted to show you this little image. Now, this is a baby guinea pig, which we often don't see with mites and mange. It does happen, but this is severe mites mange on a baby guinea pig that came into rescue, unrelated to that mum. And we'll talk about that, but the predominant reason here is that when guinea pigs are born, they carry immunity, which does give them some protection from what their mum is actually experiencing. So even the case of that poor mum I've just shared with you, her litter was completely born fully furred. Now, with guinea pigs that are young, submitted to situations where their mum or other guinea pigs are unwell, they will slowly succumb to it around 3 to 4 weeks of age. So that initial immunity does wane, and that's when they become really prone to it as well. And of course, fully furred up, this is how we want to see all guinea pigs and healthy and well. Okay, let me come back to you. Okay, did that make sense to everyone? Because what I wanted to do is just run through a few things with excellent. Yeah, we see some really nasty things, and I'm sorry if some of those photos shocked you, but the reality is in rescue we deal with some really severe issues. And again, I hope that you would never see anything like that with your own pets, because you'll jump on board really quickly with it. The simple solution: treat for both. So let's take a look at what fungal is. So essentially, fungal is an infection, and it's often, if we look at it in humans, we actually call it mycosis, but it's a skin disease and it's called by fungus. So there are thousands and thousands of different types of fungus. So when we talk about a guinea pig having a fungal affect moment being brain fog, being affected by fungal, we don't want to specifically identify which fungus is involved. We treat all of them the same way. So very treatable, very easy to do, but there are thousands and thousands of different varieties. And of course, fungal is actually, it holds a really important part of the ecosystem that we're in. You may not realize this, but let's just go back, because fungal can actually appear on many different parts of the body, as it can for us and other animals like guinea pigs. So when we talk about tinea on your feet, that's fungal. When we talk about ringworm, there's no worm involved, that's fungal. So these infections, thrush infections, yeast infections, are all caused by different types of fungus, and it affects different areas. And that's why some guinea pigs you'll see affected more so on the face, some on the back, some in different parts. We've got fungus on the feet, all these different regions, because, you know, different fungi can be involved, but the fungi itself grows at a super fast rate. So if we look at, and look, this varies across all of the species of fungus, but all I can say is it grows very fast. So within 24 to 48 hours, fungal spores are actually starting to grow and reproduce. And when they reproduce, their cycle results in more spores, which then go on to reproduce again in different areas. The situations they like to be in is where it's really moist, and lots of moist and high humidity. So if you could imagine on a guinea pig in around the ear area, where there's a bit of oil coming out of the ear, a bit more discharge, a bit of hair covering on the area, it's much more moist in there than it is, for example, on the top of the head. So that is why more commonly we find it in around the ear. It's also an area that they are more directly in contact with. So if you think about how fungal spores can spread, a guinea pig that walks on something is then going to groom itself, groom its ears, groom its face. So these areas where there's moisture around the mouth, the ears, they become more common. And of course, the feet. The tummy, again, bigger guinea pigs, they're walking with their tummy against the surface. If the surface is moist and damp under there, they're going to get more of it in that area than they will on top of them. Does that make a little bit of sense as to why? But again, the area that it is on them doesn't so much matter. We just need to know how to treat it, how to get on top of it. Okay, so fungi are microorganisms, and they're characterized by a substance in their cell walls, which we call chitin. That's how they're actually identified. And there are many different types of fungi, including mushrooms, that can be edible. So when we talk about fungi, you know, lots of them are actually quite good. But other fungi, like Aspergillus, is actually quite lethal, and it can kill. So all of these different types of fungi have different characteristics or effects on things. But what we're dealing with specifically is a fungal infection of the skin. So if you think of it simply like that, is probably the easiest way to deal with it. So we know that they like warm and humid areas. Fungal spores are microscopic, so you can't see fungal spores. But what you can see is a fungal bloom on the skin. So when we look at guinea pig ears, and you've seen lots of videos like this, but you'll notice little white patches on the ears, or in some of the photos I've just shared with you, you'll see lots of white patches which splay out. And that is a fungal bloom. So, of course, many spores are involved there, and it's just blooming and spreading. So that's another way we can spot it. Fungal spores themselves, while they are microscopic, they're actually biological particles that have a purpose, that help with plants and propagation, in the sense that they actually break down plant matter. So one of the purposes that they have is actually in the decomposition of organic material. So think about your compost and cutting the grass. You might put grass clippings in there, or you might put food, vegetable food scrap in there. Within a day, if you've ever lifted the lid or put your hand on a cut grass pile, you'll notice how warm it is. And it's got nothing to do with the weather outside. It's actually to do with the breakdown of plant matter. That is fungal spores, or fungi, if you like, that are breaking it down in the plant matter. So within 24 hours, fungal is actually there. Now think about a guinea pig cage, because we feed our guinea pigs vegetation. And vegetation is part of the process of carrying and transporting fungi, so that it can then break down plant matter later, because it feeds on it. So if you've got in your cage plant matter, which of course we feed them plant matter, and you have hay that they may urinate, which then gets wet and damp, the fungal spores actually start to become active within the cage. So what I'm trying to point out is that there is a two-pronged attack that we need here. The first one is to address the issue of the animal and the fungal on them, but the other is to actually treat why it's there, why it's occurring. So the cage must be damp. Maybe it's been unclean. It hasn't been cleaned often or frequently enough, and that plant matter is building up. Therefore, the fungal spores are building up. Can you see the correlation between the two? So we can't just treat the animal and then put the animal back in the same cage. We have to actually look at what went wrong so it doesn't happen again. So we can treat the animal, but we also need to look at what happened in the first place. Okay, I'm going to jump over to the chat and see if we've got any questions in there, because I feel like I've thrown a lot of material at you, and we'll take a peek. Let's have a look. Hi, Elizabeth. Welcome. Welcome. My heart gotcha. Hello. Okay, here we go. So, my heart gotcha, but what can I use to get rid of my guinea pig's fungal mange situation? I cannot afford a vet, and I can buy products to use at home. Any advice? You absolutely can sort this out yourself, most definitely. So, happy to walk you through that, and that's what this chat's all about. So for I Heart Gotcha, can I ask you, I'm going to, if you've got a phone and you can go to your guinea pigs, I'm just going to put into the chat a link right here. There we go. Hopefully everyone can see that. And if you want to share with me your guinea pig, and we can talk about them now, I can show you what to do, how to do it, you can definitely treat them. So if you want to take advantage of that, you can chat with me. Now, a lot of people don't want to do that. Some do. We've had chats where we've been really busy, but the chat link is down there, and all you do is aim your phone towards your guinea pigs so we can see them, and we can then share with you what to do. But fungal and mites, very easy to treat. The severity of the condition is what does affect how we treat the animals initially, because in some instances pain management is required, and they may be due to mites scratching incessantly and have damaged their skin. So there's other issues that can follow on. The little video that I shared with you earlier with the girl that was very thin and underweight, she had several things going on. So it wasn't just the mites and fungal. She was clearly underweight. She was starving. She was dehydrated. So there are other things we also need to look at there. But if we can get on top of all of those, absolutely very treatable. Okay, so we've done those questions. Fungi can also help transfer nutrients from one part of a pine forest to another. Absolutely. They're good and useful, yeah, because they break everything down. Very, very useful organisms. but we don't want them on us. So, okay. Right. So let's move on to the other part of this, which is mites. Now, mites, I might even leave mites for another night because we're already half an hour in, but I'll touch on them briefly here to say that mites are essentially a small parasite that is called it's an ectoparasite. So it likes to live on the host of an animal. It doesn't want to kill the animal. So because obviously if the animal is dead, then the mites have nothing to survive on. So they sort of exist on the animal. Now, it is quite possible that mites can actually exist on guinea pigs quite happily without really bothering them that much. But it's when they start to get out of hand that we start to notice the issues. And that's, of course, when the animal also notices and starts to lose hair, get really scratchy, itchy, and bothered by them. And they're nasty little things. Again, there are many different types of mites. And when we want to establish what we're treating, we don't want to specifically find out which mite because the treatment is the same. So we don't need to go to that level of detail. But we do deal, like we get used to seeing things like psychoptic mange mites and we identify them in rescue. But from your perspective, you simply need to know that mites can be treated by using different products. Now, there are a couple of ways that we can treat mites, and it really depends where you are in the world as to the product that you will have available, because the medication rules also around these products, the use of them has an impact. So here in Australia, we have two products that we use. One is Revolution and the other one is called ivermectin. Now, with Revolution, we recommend people use the puppies and kittens measure or dosage for 2 guinea pigs. And I'll touch on this later in something different, but it has a product in Revolution called selamectin, which basically kills mites. So within 24 hours, the entire cycle of mites has stopped dead. And the advantage with Revolution is that it actually kills not only the live mites, but also the eggs. So there's no egg cycle that's continuing. If we look at the other use of Ivermec, and you've heard of using this in different parts of the world, people use a horse paste. We have the actual oral solution, which can also be injectable, the injectable version that vets use. So there's many different ways we can provide this. But with Ivermec, the thing to note is that you do need to repeat the cycle twice. And that's so that it kills the live animals or the live parasite. And then a week later, the egg cycle. So it interferes with the egg cycle as well. That's why we need to repeat it twice. So it's a little bit, look, it takes two times to do that, once every 2 months as opposed to once. But there are reasons we might choose one over the other. Any questions on those two products while we just go through them? Hi, Kathy. Both of the products here in Australia are over the counter. Now, in America, you actually have to obtain them through the vets. So it makes it a little bit more expensive, but you can also order some online. So you can order the Ivermec online, which is helpful. Although, yeah, at this point in time, there's a lot of changes going on with that as well. Have you got me back, Suzanne? Hopefully. I'm not sure. All right. So when we have an animal that comes in and needs help, we need to assess the state of the animal. And there's a few things I wanted to touch on here. And I might do that by going through a little story. And this is a guinea pig called Jasper that you're about to meet. Now, Jasper was quite a sad story, but had a very happy outcome. But we're probably going back a considerable time now, probably 10 years or so. Let me just take you back in time. Let me see. Okay. So, just going to share with you. I'm going to share with you Jasper. Here we go. Okay, so this is Jasper and his buddy Choc. Now, it's really quite a sad story because we are going back, what was that, about 2008? So we're going back a considerable time. But Jasper was actually an older boy. He is the boy here on the left. And he came in for boarding. He had lived all on his own. He did have a buddy, but his buddy had died long before we met Jasper. And at the time he came in, he was well and healthy, but he was on his own. And Choc, I'm just trying to think back. Choc came in the second time. But anyway, Choc came from us. He was dumped as a little guinea pig in a box of guinea pigs at Lemon Grove near McDonald's. And there were 15 in the box and only one was alive. It was such a hot, sunny day. But Choco is this little guinea pig. He's not so little there. But as a baby, he was literally only 3-4 weeks old. He was found in that box. And he then, back in the day, became friends with Jasper. So we had a call one day asking for help that Jasper wasn't looking well. And I said, look, come on up. So they came up and I was horrified. This is them arriving in the box. I was horrified to see what had happened. Jasper not only had, he was in a horrendous state, but he was so tiny and frail by comparison. So if we look at him when we tip him up, this is Jasper. And he was in such immense pain. You can actually see very clearly on his face here. It looks like this is his face. But remember I spoke about how high the depth of that crustiness can be on hair. That's all crustiness. It was so thick and chunky. It was awful. So this is poor Jasper. He was in such a state. Poor little fella. So the question that we had here, and this is one that goes back in time, is to do with, do you separate guinea pigs if they have mites and fungal from others? And my answer to that is no. My answer to that is no. Hi, Diane. The reason is you do more damage to their social connections than if you were to remove them. So we're not talking about guinea pigs that are on their own to begin with. We're talking about paired guinea pigs or trios where one clearly is affected more so than the others. Do you need to separate? The answer is no. There are some exceptions to that. And that stems from where one guinea pig may be being pushed out because it actually is so badly affected by mites that the others are effectively picking on it and pushing it away. They don't want to catch them either. The reality is they all have it, just to different degrees. So separation does cause stress, absolutely. And they're already stressed. I've shown you some guinea pigs here that are highly stressed. So in this situation with, you can see here with Choco, you can see he has a tiny little patch in the middle of his back, but it's nothing remotely like what was on his buddy here, Jasper. Do we separate them? No, we don't. Okay, so with this journey, poor little fellow, he was really a mess. He really was. We commenced the process of treating him. Now, the process of treating an animal. Ooh, sorry, that flew through again. I've put my hand on it somehow. Hold on. Let's go back. Right. The process of treating an animal like this does take time. And the way that we do it today is very different than we would 10 years ago because we know so much more about that treatment. But in terms of the medication, it is the same. So for mites and fungal, he needs to get ivermectin or Revolution placed on him. And there's a process of also bathing that we go through. And I might point you to some of the bath videos that we would do. Perhaps the one that says do mites bury deeper, because that is the most important information I'm trying to share with you today. And I still see rescues that will have an animal like this. They will wrap it up and they won't attempt to remove or to help it beyond wanting that scabbiness to fall away. But if you take a careful look at that video, if someone can put it up there into the chat, it's called Do Mites Bury Deeper, you can clearly see that this scaliness, they have such sensitive skin. It must feel awful all over their body, absolutely horrendous. That if we can alleviate that bite coming off within an hour, you can actually touch that area and they're fine. And that's without pain relief. So it's really quite incredible. It's all to do with the sensitization of the skin, but you have to do it in a very careful way and get on top of that. And it helps the animal. Instead of waiting a week to get on top of that recovery, we can do it so much faster. In terms of hair regrowth, within 10 days to 2 weeks, you'll fully see the hair start to recover. In a case so severe as this, there's going to be little tiny outbreak areas that you need to very much watch. And that's because fungal spores grow at such a fast rate. So you really need to be on top of an animal like this, because even despite washing and bathing and treating, and this little fellow had attention every single day. Despite all of that, there's little tiny, but you can see a little bit of white here and here. That's the sort of thing within 24 hours can easily start to take off again. So we need to watch out for that. You can see the regrowth recurring. Isn't he beautiful? And I cannot find, there's another photo of him, so gorgeous. And look at his size here compared to Choc. He's almost back to his recovery weight in that photo. There's some gorgeous photos. I was trying to look for them for you. I might pop them up later on the community chat area in YouTube. But what it shows you is how he then recovered fully. So here he is nearly back to his own original state, which is such a cute little fellow. What a journey. What a journey. And that's what it's all about. So within, I think it took him 21 days to about 4 weeks because he had a lot of weight regain that he needed. So a full month really in recovery for an animal like that. In terms of hair regrowth, within 2 weeks, you've got that happening again, which is good. Oh, thanks, Suzanne. You've popped that up there. Diana, it is heartbreaking, but we see a lot like that. But as I mentioned, not as many now because people are starting to really get on top of it and get to be aware. Now, so we've looked at the question of, do we separate them in instances like that? No, we don't, unless there's a reason to do so. Another thing that we do need to be aware of is secondary issues. And in the situation of that very first little girl, she was underweight, she was very thin. Jasper was very underweight, very thin. So we have to look at things and consider things like dental issues, other things that could be brewing away, compounding the problem. So there's generally a little bit more at play. I think that's about all I really wanted to touch on there tonight with all those videos. But hopefully I've shared with you a bit about the journey and how to get on top of that. I would touch on in the chat, and we're streaming into the chat tonight as well. So if you're watching this, fantastic. But that's the Facebook group chat. People talk about seeing a guinea pig and they say, oh, it's fungal. No, it's ringworm. No, it's this. No, it's that. Treat the same. Ringworm is the same as fungal on the foot. We treat it the same way. So we need to deal with creams that can either be put locally onto an area. So if a guinea pig has a little tiny patch somewhere in the face, like just here, you're not noticing it anywhere else, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist anywhere else. Remember that the spores are microscopic. So I always recommend that you bath them, which will eradicate any spores, and then locally treat that area with a topical ointment. We use Dactarin here commonly, but there's Nizoral, there's microconazole for a shampoo. There's lots of different combinations of things, and it depends where you are in the world. So again, in the chat, our Facebook group, if you do have questions around that, you can actually ask, what products are available. We can sort of point you in the right direction. But most of this you can deal with yourself and in the right way using those videos. Okay. So any questions? You're all very quiet tonight. Oh my goodness, too quiet. It is heartbreaking. Yep. Hi. I thought it was funny. Hello. Choc is a big chunky boy. Yeah, did you see at the end how they were both the same? And there is a final photo of Jasper. I will put it up in the YouTube on the community chat or whatever it's called. When I find it, I'll put it. I meant to find it. I just ran out of time. But, incredible, his recovery. And, 4:47 a.m. Oh, my goodness, early again. It's wonderful to see you here. This gets you up early for your day, doesn't it? Okay. Oh, thank you very much. Actually, that's great. If I can have people, if you're here watching, we've got quite a few in the chat. Everyone's very quiet. Maybe you're all sleepy. I'm not sure. Put you all to sleep. But just press like for me, thumbs up, which will have this information so it can be found, that people can use it to help them. And we had, now, who was it asked about their guinea pig needing help? Who was that in the chat? Got to scroll back up. I don't think he's clicked on the link at all. But certainly, if you're still there, jump into our group, which is the Cavi Savvy Guinea Pig Community on Facebook, and you can post up help questions in there, and we will help you. Yeah, it was I Heart Getcha. That's right. Yeah. So we can actually show you the products in there, and you can definitely get the help you need. Very treatable. The big thing here is to not let it happen in the first place. So keeping cages clean, being on top of situations that can cause moisture and humidity. So if guinea pigs are sitting in a corner and urinating in that corner all the time, it's going to be humid. And fungal spores love that. So do mites, in fact. So by keeping your cages really well and tidy, you're discouraging anything like that from happening. And then lastly, if you do spot something, you can get onto it right away. So treat for both, and that way you'll have cover both of your bases. There's no reason just to treat for one. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Good night and sleep tight. And I think I had better also head, because we've been on here 50 minutes, nearly an hour, much longer this week. Florida is extremely humid. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and look, here in Australia, we find one of the times it really flourishes is change of season. So when we're moving from winter into spring and so forth, so change of season, the humidity really tends to fluctuate. But that's a key with fungal in particular. Mites do love it as well, but fungal in particular. So great. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you found this useful. If you're watching this after, please pop down below your questions. because I'll happily answer them. I do go through them, and we'll happily help you with those. And we shall see you next week, next Tuesday night, for the weekly chat. Okay. Take care, everyone. Thank you also for our moderators in the chat tonight. Suzanne's over there. I thought it was funny. Thank you so much for the help that you're giving on that end, which is wonderful. I appreciate you all. Okay. Take care, everyone. Good night.